How to clone repository from GitHub. Cloning a repository in GitHub allows you to create a local copy of a project on your computer. This is useful for making changes, contributing to projects, or working offline. In this guide, we'll walk you through on how you can clone a GitHub repository using both GitHub Desktop and the command line, which is the git CLI. Now, what is cloning a repository? Basically, cloning a repository means downloading an exact copy of a GitHub repository on your local machine. And so, this will allow you to work on a project without affecting the original repository, make changes locally and push updates on GitHub, and access all branches, commit history, and files on the GitHub website right here. Now, let's just go ahead and say that you and your partners are working together on a project like this one, and let's say that you want to make changes on a specific command line on one of these files. Let's go ahead and click on the About HTML. From here, you and your partners decided to edit this part of the code, and we can now go ahead and use clone tool on GitHub in order to download this specific file into our computer so it won't go ahead and affect the original folder or file from the GitHub servers itself. And so the first way to clone a repository using GitHub is downloading the GitHub application called GitHub Desktop. You want to search on Google called GitHub Desktop, click on Download GitHub Desktop, and from here you will be able to access their official site. Now, before we head further, all of the mentioned tools are on the description box below, so make sure to check it out. And obviously, before doing this, you also want to make sure that you have your own GitHub account. Now you can just open up another tab, search for GitHub, sign up, and from here you want to navigate through their official sign up page, which is github.com/signup. Now you can go ahead and use multiple accounts on GitHub, like signing in from your Google account, Facebook, and more. In my case, I'll go ahead and use one of my Google accounts right here. After making sure that you have an account, just download the GitHub application. From there, it will basically go ahead and look something like this. And right after, you can just select the location of the file that you want to go ahead and be downloaded in. Open up the downloaded file. And from here, we can now go ahead and install the application of GitHub Desktop. Click on sign into github.com. Click on authorize desktop. And from there, you will be able to link your GitHub account to your GitHub Desktop. From here, we can then configure our Git. You can use your GitHub account name and email, or you can configure it manually. In my case, I'll be using my GitHub account. Click on the Finish button, and once inside, we can now create our own repository. But since I already have my own repository right here, you can also go ahead and choose one if you want to. Now, cloning a repository is easy. You can just navigate through the menu right here, click on a specific repository, and right after, we can see the blue button right here for cloning a specific repository. So as an example, let's clone this repository right here. Click on clone, and you should be good to go. Basically, from there, it will go ahead and look something like this. Once again, let's go ahead and say that I'm working on a project called Takoyaki Town. Now I can go ahead and locate my repository because it came from my own account. But what if you want to clone a repository that's not from your account? Now that's also easy to do. But before that, let's go ahead and show you what cloning a repository does. If you navigate through a specific cloned repository, basically this is what it will look like, where you can directly edit the codes inside that repository, and it will not go ahead and make changes from the official GitHub repository. From here, you can then go ahead and view the files of your repository from the local machine itself, which is our computer. So that means that it's not accessing the repository from the GitHub server. Now, to basically go ahead and clone a repository outside your account, you can just navigate through this button right here, click on the add button, click on clone repository, and once inside we have multiple options. We have github.com where we can then go ahead and see all of our repositories. You have your file path below that. You have the GitHub Enterprise and the URL. Now, using the URL is one of the easiest way in order to clone a repository in GitHub. From here, you want to go back to your GitHub page, locate a specific repository that you want to clone. In my case, I'll just go ahead and browse through the community right here, and let's find a repository that we can go ahead and clone. Let's choose this one. And inside, you simply want to click on the code button. From here, we can go ahead and see the URL of this repository. We can open it using GitHub Desktop or download it via zip file. Now, to make things easier, let's just copy the URL of this repository, go back to the GitHub application, and from here, you simply want to paste the URL that we got from the GitHub servers. You can also change the local path if you want to. From there, you can simply clone this repository by clicking on the clone button. Wait for a few seconds. And from there, basically all of the files inside this specific repository will be taken and viewed or edited into our local machine. So let's just go ahead and wait for this process to finish. From there, it will simply go ahead and look something like this. So if we click on the view in Explorer, it will then take us to the file path on our local machine. And if you browse through the GitHub page right here, we can then go ahead and see that every file from the GitHub website is on our local machine. From here, we can then go ahead and completely edit this project out and make it our own if we want to. Now, there is another way in order to clone a repository in GitHub, and that is using the git bash. Now, it's as simple as navigating through the GitHub page once more. Once again, just go ahead and navigate through the code, copy the URL, and from there, you can then go ahead and open up the git bash application. Now, you can get this application by downloading it from the gitscm.com/downloads. From there, it's as simple as typing git clone and the name of the repository right here. You can then go ahead and press on enter to create your local clone. And from there, you should be good to go. You have successfully created a clone by using git bash. And so those are the two ways in order to clone a GitHub repository. Now, in conclusion, cloning a GitHub repository is essential for working on projects locally. Whether you use GitHub Desktop or the git bash, following the steps will help you download and manage repositories efficiently. Now that you know how to clone a repository, you're ready to start working on a GitHub project. If this video has been helpful, leave a like, subscribe, and follow us for more tips and videos like this one. And as always, thank you for watching.